Почитувани представници на
Distinguished members of the press, now we'll have the press conference of the President of the Government of the Republic of North Macedonia, Dimitar Kovačevsky, and Mr. James O'Brien, Assistant State Secretary for European and Eurasian Affairs of the USA. I invite Prime Minister Kovačevsky to address you. Thank you. Dear members of the press, dear citizens, it was an honor to host the leaders' meeting from the Western Balkans. EU meets Western Balkans, and about the growth plan. Today we had the leaders and the partners of the region, the European Union, through two high representatives, the Director General for Enlargement and Neighborhood, Gerjan Kopman, and the Director Marko Markovets. The USA were represented by the Assistant Secretary of State on European and Eurasian Affairs, whom I'd like to welcome, who is present here at the press conference. We had high representatives of key regional partners of the Western Balkans and the Regional Cooperation Council, CEFTA, and representatives of international and financial partners, the European Investment Bank, the World Bank, USAID, and representatives of the civil sector. Today's discussion was devoted to the growth plan for the EU, recognized by all as an excellent opportunity for access to the European single market, a tool for accelerated approach, which is of exceptional importance for the economic development of the region and for achieving higher standards of life. The growth plan is the most serious confirmation from the European Union that they have a concrete plan for efficient European integration of the Western Balkans. With their realization, depending on the European Union and on us, the Western Balkan countries, the GDP per capita should be doubled, and out of the average 6,000 euro per capita in the region to 12,000 euros in the next 10 years. Today we focused mostly on two of the four pillars of the growth plan for the Western Balkans, that is the regional common market and the European single market, for several reasons. First, because I personally think that these two pillars were less represented in the public compared to previously, and they play a key role in the freeing of the potential of the region. They will open doors for the workers of the region to Europe, and they will make the region more attractive for the European investors. And third, by using the standards of the European Union, the common European market will be a bouncing step towards the opening to the European market. When speaking of regional economy, we'll have a larger market that pretends to join the market of 450 million citizens with GDP of more than 3 billion euros. The GDP of the region compared to the EU is 0.6%. And when establishing and reinforcing the regional market, it is expected that our economies will rise by about 10%. That is why we reaffirmed our commitments to the enhancement of the four freedoms of movement, capital, goods, services, for all our citizens. It is important for the citizens to hear that we have a concrete plan how to reinforce our economies, to improve the standard of living of the citizens, to provide stable region. It is important for them to hear that they have concrete support on the European path. In these key moments for the progress of the Macedonian European future, the European Union and the United States from here, from Skopje, send a clear message of support for the efficient integration of the Western Balkans in the European Union. At the same time, they send a message that in this process, they count on the pro-European leaderships. Today at the meeting we adopted a joint declaration statement with which we as leaders from the Western Balkans oblige to development of our country following the European standards. In this joint statement we underscored the importance of the cooperation between all of us in the region as a strategic alliance, all in order to reach our individual objective and the joint objective, membership into the European Union. The Republic of North Macedonia has been in this pre-accession process for 3 decades, and we have high degree of harmonization of our national legislation to the European Union of over more than 50%. As a government, we did everything that was necessary, and in the last 15 months, we completed successfully the screening process with the European Union after having the first intergovernmental session. However, the accession process is not only a government procedure, it is a social transformation that includes all social stakeholders, and it requires high level of political and institutional accountability, all in order to realize this strategic goal following the NATO integration. I would like to convey the message that we will do anything in our power to provide prosperous future for the Macedonian citizens here in our country. Today, I hosted the final international event in my mandate as a Prime Minister, and I would like to extend my appreciation to everyone for their partnerships and cooperation. We went through many challenges. We joined our forces when it was required, and I believe that in the following mandate we will continue to intensify the pro-European agenda that is expected by our citizens. The region, North Macedonia, belongs to the European Union, and it is a process that started and it will not end. The European Union is our only alternative and strategic objective. That is why here, before you, I will reiterate, we have the political will and we have commitment, and we will achieve that goal. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Thank you to the representatives of the EU and the leaders of the Western Balkans for today's exceptionally important meeting of this and attendance at this event, because we discussed the growth plan of the EU for the Western Balkan countries. Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. Now I invite Mr. James O'Brien to take the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. This was a very interesting and exciting meeting. We brought together the leaders of the 6 Western Balkan countries, 5 in the room, 1 on video, along with all the major international partners to discuss the EU's growth plan. I think the fact that so many people were willing to come and spend a day and a half discussing this new initiative is a real tribute to the leadership that you've shown on regional and European issues, and I thank you for your leadership. As we look forward, what is different about this? Because this region has seen a lot of new initiatives. And I think here I want to focus on 2 things. One is there are benefits soon. So in this program, in exchange for some reforms, countries will get access to the European single market. And as the Prime Minister said, that's an incredibly wealthy market of consumers who are waiting and businesses waiting to engage with the people of this region. That is a huge benefit. It comes soon. So we discussed 2 practical ideas, one of which would reduce the charges, the fees charged to transfer money. This could end up saving people a total of 500 million euro a year soon, but also think of it as it's 5%, give or take, on every transfer of funds from Europe into the region. That's a lot for an individual or a small business trying to grow. We also talked about expanding the green lanes. The green lanes are one of the most important steps the European Union has taken to allow this region to trade. It's already reduced more than 20 years of waiting time just last year. And now if we expand that to more and more goods, services, and crossing points, it will lower the costs for businesses to locate factories and other facilities in the Western Balkans. A few years ago, when this whole discussion began, it cost as much as 12 times as much for a European company to outsource to the Western Balkans. It took them an extra 2 months in some countries if they decided to outsource a simple production facility in the Western Balkans. And now, if the borders open and trucks can move and freight can move quickly, then people can benefit immediately. This is something that will begin to happen this year. And it leads me to a second thing. How do we know this will work when many other initiatives founder on the political divisions that we know are in this region? In this program, no one can veto anyone else. Each country is responsible for its own reforms and for working with as many of its neighbors as it can. So now countries that seize initiative will get the benefits sooner, and they will not have to wait until some unrelated dispute is resolved. These are tremendous accomplishments. Finally, we will be accountable in this process. So the leaders agreed today to set up a working group that will work continuously on the payments area, the green lanes, and then other ideas as they're developed. The leaders will meet regularly to review progress and resolve any political disputes that are in play, that remain. With that kind of focus, the European Union estimates that we'll be able to see results, see money in people's pockets, sometime this year, both in terms of investment by the EU, assistance to be able to make the single market work, but also then benefits from the access to the single market that will come from these reforms. This work will be done transparently. We'll talk about it regularly. You'll see what progress we're making. Some countries in the region will move ahead more quickly. Some countries might lag on some initiatives and will get fewer benefits. And it'll be up to the citizens of each country to decide whether they like what their government is doing to take advantage of this opportunity. As the United States, we feel it's in our interest that the interests of the citizens of the Western Balkans be satisfied and that we see the governments move closer to integration in Europe. So it's fitting for me to be here this week in Skopje with the Prime Minister in his last international meeting in this mandate, but that we commit that North Macedonia and the United States will continue to work together on the country's trajectory into Europe. The people of this country will have a clear choice sometime in the next months between a vision that knows how to go to Europe and something else. That will be up to the citizens to decide. With the US, from the US standpoint, we very much want to see North Macedonia become a part of Europe as soon as possible. So I'm pleased to be part of this initiative. Thank you.
We will have two questions, one for the guest and one for Prime Minister Kovačevski. CITL TV. Good afternoon. I have a question to Prime Minister Kovačevski, a political one, regarding developments in our country. Would you propose technical government without the opposition, and does this meet the objectives of the technical government? Since we had certain speculations, and I would kindly ask you for a comment from Mr. O'Brien. Are the information that international factor pressures signing a non-paper of the Albanian political parties that will commit them not to enter the coalition with a party that in the following 6 months after the elections will not implement the constitutional changes? Let me answer that I haven't heard such speculations. I will not be a minister in the technical government. I will lead the campaign of the Social Democratic Union of Macedonia and the coalition and the forthcoming elections. Regarding the technical government, it is a legal obligation, and everyone who participates in the technical government, and these are the political parties and the authorities, the opposition should propose their candidates and then they should support the government in the parliament. I believe that we have sufficient days by Sunday for these formalities to be completed. And on Sunday, we'll have the voting that will bring us to the technical government, which will conduct the elections. Everyone should work in compliance with the law and in compliance with the democratic principles. When one proposes minister, then they should support that minister. You cannot expect that you will propose some ministers and someone else to support your ministers. There is not such thing in the world practice. I believe we have sufficient days to do this by Sunday.
I was told someone would ask me about a non-paper. I don't know about a non-paper. I want to stay with what I have said when I was here in November and also today, that we think it's up to the citizens of North Macedonia to decide the way forward. I think one party has proposed a way forward and, of course, takes criticism because some people like or don't like that way. I think another party is promising that it will figure out a way forward, and I think it's fair for citizens to maybe ask that party to put forth a non-paper explaining what its vision is. And then you get to decide between the vision you know and something that's a promise.
Второ прашање и последно, Тамара.
Second question, Tamara. For Mr. O'Brien, 2 years after the publication of the first names on the blacklist, the American blacklist from the State Department, are you satisfied that the Macedonian government decided to incorporate the blacklist in its legislation, and whether this will be sufficient for the fight against corruption? When can we expect enlargement of this list with names from Macedonia? Prime Minister, when will this proposal be placed before the members of the parliament so that they can adopt the law? An additional question, if it is not a problem, at the Council of the European Union in December, the growth plan did not pass. When do you expect it to pass? Because this is the focus that we discussed today. Without this growth plan passing in the Council, nothing can be implemented. My colleagues asked me for a comment from both of you. You spoke of unity in the region, but you have a press conference alone, although it was announced that this will be a joint press conference of all leaders from the region. Why do we not have joint conference, and how do you comment on this? The press conference was not in such format due to the duration, and that part of the leaders should have leave, and that is why everyone had their own individual press conferences. However, as you could see, the meeting was exceptional, and yesterday's informal dinner the same, and of course today's meeting that was on the media. You had several questions. Yes, when the law will be placed before the members of the parliament. Yes, the government informed that a law is being prepared, amendments to the law on restriction measures of North Macedonia, with including the restriction measures introduced by the United States of America and Great Britain. These amendments go through a process of harmonization with the positive legal processes in our country, and when this is completed, since it went through a government procedure, it will be delivered to the members of the parliament. There is no limitation for this because we are going on elections. The parliament will do their job, and I think that it will very soon be on the agenda after it is harmonized with other laws, because this law will impact other laws when introduced. Regarding the growth plan, you know that this growth plan was presented by the President of the European Commission, von der Leyen, and pursuant to the procedures of the European Union, it will be on some of the next sessions of the European Commission, especially since the European Commission will work by June, and it depends on the schedule of their meetings.
Let me try. I'm not going to comment on the legislative processes of either North Macedonia or the European Union. Just to get to the substance in the questions. The growth plan, European Union leaders have a great deal of confidence, and I've heard from leaders across the spectrum that they have confidence that the growth plan will be adopted. It's an innovative approach. It sparks business involvement, and that's of interest to leaders across the political spectrum. The question on the role of U.S. sanctions in fighting corruption is a complicated one. We see sanctions as a piece of a strategy to address corruption, state capture, favoritism, all of the problems that affect many, many countries, including in this region. So I'm grateful that the government has begun this particular program to work on the issue of corruption. A list is a list. It's always under study and evolution. Our goal is to see a change in behavior by the individuals on the list and by those associated with them. That sometimes means more names get added to the list or people come off the list. So the list, but it's a tool as part of a broader strategy. And so that's what we want to see, is people getting used to using all of the tools that are available to fight corruption and keeping that commitment foremost in the formation of a new government.
Тук е краят на днешната.
We are closing the press conference. Just a brief question from the colleague.
Mr. Prime Minister, how do you see, Mr. O'Brien, the perspective between Kosovo and Serbia, and what is your message towards Mr. Kurti and Mr. Vučić? Thank you very much.
We strongly support the roadmap that was agreed in this country again at Ohrid last March, and we believe both countries need to work through the dialogue process to implement the roadmap fully.
Благодарам, почитуване, тук е краят.
Thank you very much. This would be the end of the press conference. Thank you for your attention.